tomorrow. The big news out of his talk, I believe, is Vera Rubin. Now, we had been expecting this next generation of NVIDIA technology. They had talked about it a bit, but there's some major updates here, including that all 6 chips that are a piece of this are now in full production. They're giving some benchmark stacks on how they're running, and the partner systems are arriving in the second half of this year. And a little bit of that detail, they're saying 10 times lower inference token cost versus Blackwell. It's a fancy way of saying the price performance is a whole lot better than the current generation. And the argument is, yeah, this might be expensive, but it's premium, and the bang that you get for the buck is going to be that much better than the existing systems. Talked to Jensen before about how they've made these systems kind of backward compatible, so it's relatively easy to swap in the latest generation for the old one. As a matter of fact, I was talking with one of NVIDIA's partners earlier today, the CEO of Runway, which does high-end AI video. He was saying they were able to swap from a previous generation of NVIDIA into their test with Vera Rubin in a day and get that price performance benefit. He was singing its praises. They're in partnership with NVIDIA. But this is NVIDIA's push and attempt to tell the ecosystem we're still innovating, we're staying ahead of competitors, not just on performance, but they will argue on efficiency as well, Melissa. And you'll hear a lot more from Jensen in the conversation that we're going to have tomorrow morning on Squawk Box.
John, they also announced a move into autonomous driving software. Can you sort of elaborate on that and whether or not that was already sort of expected in the works, in the plan here, or is this a brand new endeavor?
Well, NVIDIA's got a long legacy with autonomous driving and with next generation cars. So this is building on that, where they've got new reasoning capabilities inside of the system that they're delivering for that. Now, when I was talking to the NVIDIA folks about this, the example I gave was, like when we had that blackout, that outage in San Francisco, the Waymo cars had some trouble knowing what to do when there's no traffic lights. This is the car that's equipped with this technology will have the ability to make some decisions, not just follow traffic light-based rules that it's been given. And that is the idea, but they were kind of like, hey, you said that, we didn't say it, we're not comparing it to Waymo. But that's why potentially you want your car to be able to reason if there's a situation that's not in the manual that you need to navigate through.
I'm just curious also, John, because after the keynote, Jensen took some questions. What was the tone of the questions? I'm wondering what the audience was. What was sort of revealed in the thinking of the audience?
Well, as you mentioned it, so the keynote just ended. He's coming up here, and right over here, about 50 feet to my right, he's going to meet with some analysts. That's where we expect more of those in-depth questions, and then I'm talking to him after that. So I have the benefit of hearing some of those questions, and of course I've got my own.
Do you think he'll unveil the price of the new chip versus the price of the old?
I didn't hear the price, but I'm...
And maybe we'll start with Vera Rubin here, Austin. So this is NVIDIA's new super chip. Jensen Huang saying now it's in full production. So this is one of 6 chips that make up what NVIDIA is now calling its Rubin platform. What is your technical take there, Austin? We turn to you, of course, because, listen, you were a former hardware engineer at Intel. You got the chops to weigh in here.
Yeah, this is everything we expect from NVIDIA. 10x higher throughput, 1/10 the token cost, and that's from innovating at the system level, so not just the GPU, but the GPU, the networking, and we even saw some innovations around memory storage. So I think this is exactly what everyone expected from these technology leaders, NVIDIA.
I want to bring Paul in here too, but Austin, just quickly, another technical question I had as I was listening there. These Rubin-based systems, Austin, that Jensen is talking about, how are they different? How do they compare and contrast, Austin? Can you put it simply for me to their previous versions, to Blackwell? Is it about performance, Austin? Is it cheaper to run? How do they compare and contrast?
Yeah, so there's more compute power, but the system is optimized via software, even using these DPUs, these network processors at the system level to take an LLM and run it at much higher throughput and much lower cost. So it's similar to Blackwell, similar to Hopper. It's the next generation, but just improved, kind of more of everything, more compute, better networking, and more system optimization, specifically around LLMs.
All right, more of everything. That sounds pretty good. Paul, bring you in here as well. Longtime tech investor that you are, Paul. You were listening. You were watching the headlines. What'd you make of it? What stood out?
What we need to hear from Jensen Huang almost every time he speaks, whether it's at CES or not, is that there are long legs to this story. When you are the standard bearer, it's incumbent upon you to come up with more and more creative cases to make sure that we're not in a bubble, or people do not perceive that we're in a bubble, or if we are in a bubble, it's not going to pop soon. I think he did that today with some very interesting opportunities that will be developed over time with agentic AI in the enterprise, and also in physical AI, particularly if we do have a widespread take-up of autonomous vehicles and robots. If your buddy Elon Musk is correct, then we have great opportunities here. But it's very important that he keeps the ball rolling because, as you know, last year the stock had a good year. NVIDIA was up about 30%, but it really sawtooth and underperformed ever since the summer. And so I will tell you that there are some people that have gone from being optimists to pessimists or skeptics. And so Jensen and others supporting this theme need to make sure that they make people feel better about things, that there's lots of growth here, and it's monetizable and profitable growth, and then get the narrative, which is decidedly in late 2025, turned negative from positive, back on the other side of the ledger.
Well, let me ask you, Paul, on that AI bubble debate, my friend, where you stand on that, how you define bubble, Paul, if we're in one, and if we're not in one, longtime investor that you are, what would be the signs, the signposts that would indicate we could be in one, Paul?
So I think we're definitely in a bubble. We are a greedy species. We all want to make money fast. And of course, we pour a lot of money very quickly in a big way into encouraging themes. But I will tell you where I differ from the crowd, particularly those that got really skeptical late in 2025, is I am very comfortable with AI infrastructure spending throughout 26. And I think even though it tapers off a little bit in 27, it's not going to collapse. And so the AI infrastructure building trade, which includes NVIDIA and some of the other semiconductor companies, the neo clouds and the other fellows that are building AI hyperscale data centers, and even some of the hardware providers will have a pretty good go of it for at least another year, maybe two. So where I come down on this, Josh, is yes, we're in a bubble, no doubt. But I didn't expect to see any profits to be had from most of these companies at this stage anyway. So I'm not disappointed in the lack of monetization. And so we'll continue to spend heavily for at least another year or two and then come back to me and we'll see if we are monetizing properly. But I never expected it this early.
NVIDIA showcased a very new Rubin platform, and that include a CPU or GPU or other networking ICs. And we found that it's quite interesting to see that NVIDIA is now seeing that AI model size is increasing like 10 times every year, and the token generation is around 5 times every year. And the NVIDIA's whole new Rubin platform will handle that kind of AI computation going forward. And they are expecting still to launch the Rubin platform in the second half of this year. So I think it's pretty exciting to see that NVIDIA is on track to launch a new system. And that should be also very good news for the whole tech supply chain.
And Masahiro, what does it mean for the autonomous vehicle market? If you've got NVIDIA working with Mercedes, how do they compare to rivals?
Yes, I think that it's really powerful. And when it comes to autonomous driving, it's really interesting because robotaxi market will expand going forward. And Bloomberg Intelligence published a really interesting story about the robotaxi last year, and that kind of the autonomous driving will accelerate the robotaxi market all over the world. And also the Mercedes might be able to differentiate its autonomous driving technology from other competitors. But I know if we look at the other aspect, AI inference market is also growing, including autonomous driving, and that will create very much big demand for the memory chips or some other networking chips. So in that sense, that should be quite interesting for the whole tech supply chain, including that autonomous driving or even robotics, or maybe that will translate into the memory demand going forward.
Okay, and we've also heard from the AMD CEO, Lisa Su, at CES. I wonder how much their new products, their new chips, could make a dent into NVIDIA's grip on the market.
Yes, AMD is very much aggressively trying to catch up with NVIDIA. And I think that probably AMD will not be able to break the current competitive landscape. I mean that NVIDIA has built its strong ecosystem over the past 10 or even 15 years. And so I think that the NVIDIA will continue to dominate the AI market. But at the same time, it's not a zero-sum game, and the AI market is expanding quite rapidly. So we think that the AMD could be able, could benefit from the AI expansion. And also, if we look at some other ASIC suppliers, I mean, including Google's TPU or some other ASIC chips, these demand will also increase. So over the maybe, if we look foreseeable future, probably the AI will benefit many tech companies, including NVIDIA, AMD.
Austin, I know you might be looking at it through a slightly different kaleidoscope, but curious on your take on that debate as well, Austin, the great AI bubble debate.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the value that's being created from AI. And if you tie that to NVIDIA, the reasoning models that came out in the past year, those were all trained on the Hopper generation. And today we're talking about 2 generations later. So the AI labs like OpenAI, right now, they're still about to release their latest version of models that were trained on the Blackwell generation. And today, Jensen stood up and he said, oh yeah, you remember Hopper where Blackwell was 10x better, and now Rubin is 10x better than that at a system level. So it's hard to imagine that both the models, the usefulness of models would top out, but also that the cost would stop going down, right? And so yes, enterprises still need to turn all of this interesting AI functionality into top-line revenue, and they're still figuring out how to do that. But what NVIDIA showed today suggests that there will be continued value from model providers. Inference will continue to get cheaper. And by the way, they're always tackling bottlenecks that we keep running into, which would be a great reason for them, which is why they do this, to train their own open source models so they too can be on the frontier and figure out where those bottlenecks are. But one of the big bottlenecks was memory. The GPUs don't have enough memory. And so today there was an announcement about this rack that goes right next to all your GPUs that has a bunch of memory and extra SSD, so storage that can be used in real time. So imagine just like longer context windows. So, your reasoning models have all these PDFs that they're using, and maybe you're generating video, right? Anything that's heavy on just creating a ton of data, ingesting a ton of data. And NVIDIA is right now saying that they're going to optimize for that. So of course, in the next 2 years, we'll see even more interesting use cases because of those optimizations that were shown today. So it's hard to imagine this just popping and falling flat.
And Austin,
it's still about value capture.
Austin, Paul mentioned a good point. You talk about NVIDIA's customers, those big tech giants we talk so much about on this show, and how much money they're spending on this AI build out. NVIDIA also did, though, look to expand that reach, Austin. I want to get your take on this, because you saw Jensen Huang there. He was talking about humanoid robot plans. He was highlighting self-driving car technologies. I'm curious what you made of that. What do you make of that broader effort, Austin?
Yeah, so robots, you can think of autonomous cars really as robots, big robots with wheels, and humanoid robots are now uniquely enabled to have a step function in usefulness thanks to LLMs, thanks to vision language models, thanks to all of this technology. self-driving was a lot harder until about the last 3 years. And so it's right for Jensen to continue to invest in making that. And you can remember that that's essentially edge AI. The training happens in the cloud still for Jensen. So they'll sell you the computer for training. They'll sell you a computer for simulating, like we saw, hey, with autonomy, how can you simulate these cars driving in many different environments at nighttime in different weather? You simulate all of it. Same thing with the robots. But of course, NVIDIA is positioning themselves to also sell way more compute at the edge. So on board, if every car is autonomous, they want to be selling the hardware that's in that. If every robot's autonomous, they want to be selling the hardware in that. So that's definitely a future growth vector that has been uniquely enabled in the last several years. And it's right for them to keep talking about it. Will that hit in 2026 and take off? Probably not, but they are investing now, and we should see an inflection there within the next several years.
Paul, we heard from NVIDIA's Jensen Huang. You're going to also hear shortly from AMD's Lisa Su. She's also at CES. How has the competitive landscape, Paul, shifted for NVIDIA over the past, let's say, 12 months, Paul? Has it meaningfully shifted? Is Jensen feeling heat from AMD? Is he feeling more heat from even the hyperscalers, the tech giants, his own customers?
Excellent question, Josh. I really admire Lisa Su and what she's done with that marvelous turnaround at AMD. And yes, they are starting to close the gap on a technology basis. However, the gap that they look to close is very, very wide. And so to answer your question directly, yes, they've closed the gap a bit, but it's still very wide. And the nice thing that NVIDIA has, first of all, it's focused on AI accelerators, where AMD still has a good portion of its revenue coming from some old school product with lower potential margins. And also, AMD does not have the full stack, including the software that Jensen Huang demonstrated on stage and emphasized on stage today in Vegas at CES. And so over time, customers definitely want to have a second source. And so they will always keep AMD in the mix. But I still think even though AMD has closed the gap a little, it's still a super wide gap, Josh. And I'm very encouraged that NVIDIA will continue to stay ahead.